Morning, everybody. We will record this webinar. It's a new episode of Web's Webinar Wednesday. I'm happy that you all joined this morning to talk about account-based approaches. So how to acquire, retain, and grow high-value accounts. Before we dive in this great topic, let me introduce myself. My name is Thijs van Rosmalen. I'm working at Webs, and I'm here today together with my colleague Steven Schroeyens, we will jump into in a second. Webs is a agency focusing on HubSpot, and we help people to grow their business, B2B, account-based, web development, all kind of solutions. So that's why we address this topic today, because it's a really powerful way of driving growth in the near future. So that's what we will talk about today. Some easy rules if this is your first Web's Webinar Wednesday. As you notice, you're all on mute, but you are allowed to put on your camera if you feel comfortable enough. And the chat will be your biggest friend. So after a couple of seconds, I will hand over to Steven and make sure that I will manage the chat for you to get all your questions covered. We will try to answer as much as possible during the webinar. But of course, you get the possibility to talk with us after the webinar. You will get the recording of the webinar and you will get the slide deck sent to you right after this webinar. So we get you all covered with that. I think we are ready for a great hour of sharing knowledge around account-based marketing. Open your chats, put up your camera if you would like, and let's go over to Steven. Good morning. How are you? All the
Good
way from
morning.
Antwerp.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here today and talk about one of my favorite topics, ABM. But let me first shortly introduce myself. I'm Steven, 38 years old, married with two kids, Ilias and Stella. And born and raised in Antwerp. I work as head of SaaS at Webs. I have a background in RevOps and in marketing, and I specialize in B2B SaaS, and I have a lot of experience in ABM. We've got a lot of content to cover today. We'll be talking about some ABM facts and figures, why you should invest in ABM. We're going to show you our ABM campaign templates and talk about the do's and the don'ts in ABM. And also touch on how to do ABM in HubSpot. So ABM has really taken off in the recent years. According to LinkedIn, 80% of the B2B companies expect to start or expand their ABM program in the near future. And ABM makes that big promise that you'll see the ROI faster from ABM than from your lead-based approach. But yeah, what does that actually mean? The facts and figures I wanted to show you is a survey from a well-respected ABM community. They interviewed hundreds of companies doing ABM. And as you can see on this chart, lots of companies are still in the early stages of adoption. But most of them are already happy with the return on investment. 76% is saying that they're seeing a higher ROI from ABM than from their other marketing activities. And that includes a direct impact on revenue. So yes, looking at this survey, the data does seem to tell us that ABM is delivering on its problems, and those teams are getting a great ROI from ABM, even at an early stage of adoption. What I would like to do next is give you a small task. We have a survey prepared with the same questions that have been answered in the Leadership Alliance survey. And task will, if all goes well, we'll start the poll now.
Yes. First question coming up. Please take a look at your screen and a couple seconds to answer the first question. Are you planning to start or expand your ABM strategy? So only yeses so far, I can see. but not everybody gave an answer yet. So we give everybody a couple seconds here. Okay, last possibility to answer this question. All right, next question. What's your current stage of adoption for ABM? 4 answers: planning, piloting, increasing, or it's already driving strategic growth. Couple seconds for everybody. Final call for an answer. Okay. On to the next question. How does ABM ROI compare to traditional marketing initiatives? Significantly lower, somewhat lower, about the same, or higher? Couple seconds again. Just a couple seconds before we go to the last question. Right, last question. Multiple choice again. In which of the following areas have you seen measurable improvement? Pipeline growth, deal size, deal velocity, retention. So you can add multiple answers if you want. Account engagement or brand lift. Couple seconds. All right, we will take a look at the answers and we will share them with you later on in the presentation. Right, Steven?
Yes, exactly. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, this is really the big question for many companies right now. I'm always excited to talk about this part because it's something that many teams are struggling with. And the first crucial thing that we need to look at is how we can measure marketing success here. At the moment, most companies just look at the number of leads they generate, which can often create a very skewed image. And the end result of a campaign is not the number of leads. Huh? It's the quality of leads. And when you're focusing on quality instead of volume, you're going to notice the problem that you, for example, you just collected 100 leads on LinkedIn, and none of them go to the SQL stage. Yet they all seem to fit your ICP. They all have the right job title. So you're asking yourself the question, yeah, what's going on? And it's because they don't want to buy anything right now from you. It's because these leads don't have buying intent yet. Many people don't realize this, but only 15%, sorry, of your ICP is in market on average at any given time. And like many of you probably, I get approached on LinkedIn all the time by salespeople without almost never any intent signal from me coming their way. And this here is, if there's no intent, they're just wasting their time. I never respond. Here's an example. This person is reaching out to me to connect based on my interactions with a post from someone in my network. So far, so good. I accept the connection request. And then there's a second message, completely unprovoked by me, as I haven't answered the first message. It's getting a bit creepy at this point. And then voila, the third message. And mind you, I still have not replied to anything. And that's really how you go from a nice outreach in the first message to a very strange follow-up sequence and to a hardcore sales pitch. And yeah, that's just it really. You don't just need that fit with your ICP and your persona. Even a lead that's visiting your website and submitting a form is not enough for B2B. You always need to be able to understand buyer intent. That's really crucial because it's only based on these three elements here in the slide, intent, ICP, and engagement, that you can genuinely tell if a lead is ready for sales or not. And I mean, this guy, he was wasting my time, he was wasting his own time, and the experience he's giving me as a buyer, as a potential buyer, does not reflect well on his company's brand either. Of course, we're not all like Salesforce and HubSpot, so it's pretty safe to assume that we will not always be able to capture intent signals on our own website and channels. They're not always going to come to us for answers. And that's why third-party intent data works really well for many B2B companies. It's a fairly new concept. Bombora is the market leader in this category. They exist for about 6 years, I think. And they really have the best intent data. They also integrate with HubSpot. And the way it works is that they scrape the internet looking for spikes of content consumption at a certain company on specific topics that are interesting to you. For me, that at webs, that could, for example, be I'm looking for SaaS companies that are interested in getting started with ABM. They translate that into an intent score, which they call the surge score, and depending on the score of your target account, you can make better routing decisions. Will you first allocate them to a nurture track in inbound, or straight away to sales for outreach? And you don't even have to wait for a hand raiser here. But maybe some important notes before you get too excited about it. It's very easy to implement. It's very easy to use, but it's not cheap. You pay a yearly license of 25K with a 24-month commitment. That price goes up when you have more than 500 employees or want more than one integration. And the only thing they track is content consumption in English. If you're tracking certain keywords like account-based marketing, that's perfectly fine, but you might want to take it in consideration before you take a license. I've always had a great ROI on this, so that's why I included it in the presentation, even though 25K is a lot of money. But I wish it were true, but it's not. In a high-touch sales model, it's not just about intent data, of course. When you're doing more complex deals in B2B, you're facing another big challenge that's hurting your performance. And that's the fact that there's multiple people involved in the buying decision. They say on average between 4 to 7 people. And what does a single engaged lead mean then in a context where many people are involved in the decision? Imagine here 4 people are involved. and you're getting all excited about having gotten through to one of them, you need to make sure that you know and engage with all the different personas involved in the decision-making process, and that you understand their role and perspective as well. And this is often where your lead-based strategy starts being less effective. The combination of intent and the multiple personas that are involved in the decision-making process. And then you often get this as result. You're generating leads, but you're not converting to pipeline. And when this is happening and your annual customer value is 15K or more, it might be an important indicator that you need to invest in an account-based strategy. As a following step, I would like to make to have everyone make this exercise. You see two axes: your annual contract value for your customers on average, and the average number of deals you run through your pipeline per year. And it will tell you whether you should have a no-touch, low-touch, or high-touch go-to-market model. You can just drop the words in the chat if you like, so I can get a feel of who's in the audience.
Let's give everybody a second. So are you no touch, low touch, or high touch? You can open your chat pane and just simply answer by typing the answers. So a lot of high touches coming in. And of course, if you don't know, you could answer that as well, but I think everybody will know. Couple of answers coming in. All of them, says Hans. That's a wide scope.
That's an entirely different webinar.
Yeah.
Hans, you can contact me and we can talk about this if you want.
So there's some low touches, Steven, coming in, but mostly high touches here. Yeah. Yeah, Hans stands out from the crowd with all of them.
Yeah, so my guess from the beginning was that here in this webinar, most of you are in that gray zone here marked in the chart. And that seems to be correct.
Yeah, mostly, yeah. Mostly is high touch, yes.
And I added another element to the chart. And so here you can see, depending on where you are, where you have plotted your company on the chart, that an account-based go-to-market strategy might be something for you or not. It's really an easy guardrail to see if you want to invest in it or not. So now you know, is ABM something for us or no? And then, of course, the question remains, how are we going to design our ABM program? At Webs, the majority of our customers operate in a high-touch model, and they face the challenge of doing more complex deals. Obviously, we spent a lot of time optimizing this go-to-market model. And because ABM is often a great way to optimize for high-touch, we created a new campaign template for it based on the lifecycle stages in HubSpot. It's also what our own consultants and marketeers are using now as a guardrail when they're implementing ABM programs for customers. The first element of the template talks briefly about the ABM philosophy. Instead of focusing on leads, you focus on accounts. ABM helps you optimize and align your marketing and sales. This is important when you're working on more complex deals. You don't need an army of marketeers and $1 million to spend. That you can roll out ABM when you're a small team on a small budget, no problem. The goal is that every account, every company, if you talk in HubSpot terms, goes through some level of personalization. And that level of personalization depends on the importance of the company to your business. And the higher the opportunity for you, the more white glove touches it will receive. And something that is even more important in an account-based approach is your data. You really need your data in order if you want to be able to create relevant campaigns and scale your ABM approach. There are 3 types of ABM, different types with different volumes of accounts and different levels of personalization. And you have one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many. So you see that ABM can be more scalable than a one-to-one approach for each individual account. The template also includes this 4-stage adoption model, which you probably recognize from the survey from the Leadership Alliance. This model really helps you identify where you are with your team and what you should be focusing on at each stage. Now we have the exploring stage. That's basically a stage where you're setting up your fundamentals for success. The experimentation stage. It's best to start basic, not to invest too much in automation yet. And as soon as you know what's working or not, you can start scaling up your approach. And if you have been doing ABM for 2 or 3 years, you'll see that it really starts driving strategic growth and strategic pipeline, and you will never stop doing it anymore. What we've also included in the survey is a framework for you to use as a guardrail when you're designing your own ABM program and you're running your own experiments. This way you're sure that you're not skipping any steps and that you're taking into account ABM best practices. It's 5 steps, and you always start in ABM in optimizing the first step, not the last one, or step 4 in this case. When you're setting up your campaign, there's a number of things you need to consider. You need to consider what's triggering the account or the lead to go to the next stage. You need to know at what level you're targeting the company. Are you targeting on company level, persona level, or just an individual lead? What type of content that you should be offering at each stage, how much you need to personalize at this stage, and what channels that will drive the right account and people to your content, and of course how to measure the success at each stage, because it's different for each steps. And then we get to step 1. This step is about improving and making sure that the right accounts are visiting our website and are engaging with our content. And when we look at the table to the right, we see again all the things from the list, the previous list of things we need to consider. There's, for example, the common triggers. The target account is visiting my website and they're engaging with my content. I'm targeting here still on account level. Typically, you use thought leadership content for this stage. You talk about the pain that they're experiencing, and the level of personalization is based on the ICP. You don't yet go any deeper than that. Popular channels for this step are SEO, SEM, email nurture, display ads, and retargeting. And the measurement of success is that they submit an awareness or consideration stage form. Then you have step 2. Step 2 spans across 2 lifecycle stages, because you're still in the beginning in step 2 at the company level. So we're talking about MQA, marketing qualified account, and MQL. I skipped the slide too soon. At MQA stage, you're going to bridge the gap between the account and the persona by looking at the intent data. By seeing what type of content they're engaging with, you can tell what persona you're dealing with. The goal is to turn your account-based activity into a lead-based activity, and you're trying to have someone at the account submit a form, and that's still the most obvious way to capture a lead. Then it starts getting a bit more exciting and a bit more interesting, because at this stage you already know a lot. You know the account, you know the lead, and you know that they're interested in a certain topic. So you can easily create a page that mentions these things and shows them relevant content. And the goal here is to try to get your lead to the decision stage and build up your account score. And that's an important detail, your account score and not your lead score. Because remember, there's multiple people involved, and it's already at this stage when you have captured your lead, you have your MQL, that you need to start thinking about nurturing other personas at these accounts as well. I've added an example of they call it a faux one-to-one, a fake one-to-one, to see what it looks like. This is really helpful when you're designing it yourself. And you see here that we're using 5 different elements of personalization: the name, the role, which is pretty basic these days, the company, the industry, and their intent. And that's an important one. Give you 2 seconds to read the email and the copy on the page. But remember, at this stage, it's automation. And that's why they call it a fake one-to-one. It feels like it's something that you created for that person, but really it's automation. Then hopefully you'll get to step 3, the first moment when sales is involved, and here you have your fit with your ICP, you have your engagement, and you have your intent in place. So when you get to this stage, this way, you can rest assured that the lead is of decent quality. And you can continue the process by doing something similar as the fake one-to-one, but this time you can do it based on intelligence from the actual conversation. If you have SDRs, or if you have a sales rep that has already done that first discovery call with the customer, they can define even better what type of content that you need to serve to that customer. Here again, people don't decide alone. It's a real win for sales if marketing can start engaging as many people as possible that are relevant to the decision-making process to do the demo. If you're in sales, you probably know that oftentimes you have to give the same demo a couple of times to different people. You lose a lot of time because of it, and that's really where marketing can support sales even better in these types of deals. And potentially this way you can even increase your annual customer value like this. You can get more seats sold, do a larger implementation. It's often an unexpected outcome coming from it. And this stage, the most important thing here is that you improve how you prioritize your accounts. Marketing builds up this list. I hope it's you can all see the details in the list. It's just an anonymized example, but what you see is a list of accounts for who you have SQLs, and you can see that the accounts are ranked based on engagement, an engagement score. Here it's the number of minutes that they've interacted with us, and next to it their intent score. Are they high intent, medium intent, or low intent on specific topics? So that's really that first when the sales rep or the SDR starts their week, that's really IQ metrics. That's the first deal that they have to get in touch with, and they already know what they have to talk about. And that data can change from week to week, so it's really up to everyone to make sure that that data is recent. and also that you reprioritize your deals according to the data. And finally, the most exciting step, step 4. This is where you go all ABM crazy in terms of things to consider. This step is almost exactly the same as the previous step, but here you're really creating custom content for specific accounts. And the biggest difference really is how you measure success. Here you're measuring your win rate, your deal velocity, your ACV, your average deal size. The most common metric here, though, if you want to keep it simple, is just revenue generated through your ABM program. And in my experience, step 1 is always the most challenging step. If you don't have that foundation, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to see a good ROI. Step 4 is the most exciting step. And step 5 is the step that people often forget. You need to celebrate your wins too, but just make sure that you always start with step 1 first. No pain, no gain. And then maybe the do's and don'ts in ABM. The first thing I want to talk about is something that I see happening a lot, and it never works. Just think of that LinkedIn example I showed earlier. That's not what ABM is about. ABM is not about skipping the entire consent process and just creating a personalized video or email and sending it cold to an account, because only 15% of those people will be intent to buy or to consider your solution, and you're just going to burn leads. A month afterwards, they might be intent. So, second topic, absolutely crucial to success. And in my experience, you're never going to really align marketing and sales if you're not going to make them co-accountable for the same number. And the best thing to do is also to report on metrics that your Cs, your C-level, and your investors care about. Marketing often talks about we've generated X amount of MQLs, but the CEO really doesn't care about MQLs. They care about pipeline, marketing generated pipeline, and they care about revenue. So do your investors. So that's really the conversation that you should be having. And it's the great added value is that when you're accountable for the same metrics as the sales team, there is nothing standing in the way of perfect alignment. You need to make sure that you build cross-functional teams when you're doing ABM. So that's at a minimum sales and marketing, but support or success is often very welcome in this process if you have the budget and if they have the time. And the idea is that you assign each member of each team, to a finite number of accounts, and they're responsible specifically for those accounts. What definitely will speed up your learning curve, whether it's internal or external, is that you have an ABM expert on board, and you will see ABM in terms of operations. It spans across a lot of things, and that's where we often come in with webs. We have different teams, the technical team, the marketeer team, the website consultant team, and we often play a supporting role in ABM projects. Then you need to make sure that you know all your personas and you understand their role in the decision making process. So map them out. Ask yourself what questions are they asking others in the team, and how can I support that relationship. And then maybe one of the most important parts, because the result from any campaign that you're running with ABM will only be as good as the quality of your list. Spend enough time on building your list and try to leverage the data that you have when you're building it. I've written down in this slide the process that I use to build my list. And for me, it starts with knowing your ICP and your personas, and then also the persona that you're using as your beachhead or your initiator. I always analyze the performance of my opportunities and the deals of the past few months to see what's working well. And I try to identify the characteristics that the high performers have in common. Then the next step is to build a list of lookalikes based on these characteristics. And if you have the capability, build up data to deepen insights on these accounts. And there's a lot of data tools that can help you deepen insights on the level of the company, but also even on the level of the individual leads. And then prioritize these accounts based on 3 types of data. The HubSpot ABM tooling allows you to do so in 3 different tiers. Now, of course, a lot of companies are doing ABM, and some of them really stand out in terms of performance. So I tried to compile a list for everyone of some habits that we see that high-performing teams have in common. One element is always that they run full ABM plays. They don't skip any of those 4 steps, and not even the 5th one. They also always measure account-related metrics. So you don't just measure lead scoring, you need to have your account scoring in place. So that's a very common example. They face the challenges that they have with their data and with the content quality, because that really needs to be top-notch if you want to be able to scale your approach afterwards, but also if you want to provide that really great customer experience and that really relevant buying experience. And they always build a blended strategy. They don't just go one-to-one, they don't just go one-to-few, they don't just go one-to-many. The ABM playbook that we created for you also starts more one-to-many or one-to-few, depending on the size of your purchasing base. And then you drip down as you move them deeper into the funnel and your pipeline. In the end, it's always one-to-one, of course. Some common mistakes that we see happening a lot, and that I've certainly made myself as well, is that you nail the channel, but you ignore the destination. So you spend a lot of time on your LinkedIn playbook to attract the right accounts to your website, but then you completely ignore the destination. It's really important, if you want ABM to work, that every step that the user, the buyer takes is hyper relevant and of high quality. So don't send them to your homepage, don't send them to a generic landing page. Make sure that what you're promising in your channel connects to what you're delivering in your destination. Otherwise, you'll see them churning. You also shouldn't look at the performance of a single touch point. Ads is pretty important in ABM, but it has a supporting role. And I see a lot of people just canceling ads when they have a low click-through rate. But it doesn't really mean that the ad is not playing a role in your ABM success. There can be lots of reasons why people are not clicking on your ads, and the ads are not directly contributing to getting those accounts on your website. It's more about creating multiple touch points in multiple channels, and they will have seen your brand and they will have seen your messaging, and you are creating multiple touch points in that space of time. So it is helping quite a lot. Another very common mistake is that you get too personal too soon. Imagine that you're on a first date, and during the first minutes of your date, the person in front of you appears to know a lot of personal stuff about you. That's just creepy. Don't do that in a business context as well. That's a tactic that you then see, that you create a highly personalized email to show off that you have researched this account, that it's important for you, and you just send it cold. That's definitely not something that converts. You need to follow all the steps in the process, and you need to look for intent and consent before you take your level of personalization a bit further. And you will also notice if you're in marketing and you're asking sales to send cold outreach videos with a highly personalized message, that they will not like it. They might do it if you force them, but they will not be confident with it. And then a fourth important mistake is that you're not able to surface the right content quick enough. And this is nothing sexy. It's just about organizing your content library in a way that you can surface content quick enough. And something that I can warmly recommend is to tag your content so that you can filter on topic. So by now, my colleague Joep or Tas should have processed the survey results. It's not 80%, but it's still quite a high number. A lot of it in early stage. A bit more here in exploring, but that's cool. This is also a nice percentage. Good job, guys.
So a lot of people want to start with it because they see the value, but they're in early stage.
They're in early stage, but they see a higher ROI from their experiments and from other activities. Even on revenue. So it's, of course, there's no don't know button. Make sure to include that next time. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, let's dive in some of the questions, Steven, if you would like, because
Yes.
there's one question of Theo who was asking what our recommendations would be on any specific ABM tooling.
There are lots of different ABM tools. The most popular is demand-based, but you have other alternatives, like 6 Sense, for example. It's of course it's an extra license. It's an extra tool, and what you're doing is that you will create a separate funnel in a separate system. Outside of the tool that you're using for your lead-based funnel, like Hubspot, for example, and that's not an ideal situation.
No.
And I'll maybe, because it's related to this question,
yes,
I'll go to what we're doing at the Webs right now, and that's exactly for that reason. It's our mission to help companies unlock the most potential from using Hubspot. And ABM is really growing into an important pillar for Hubspot. Hubspot is originally a lead-based software. Even though 2020 and 2021 was a great year in terms of ABM tooling and features, it's still challenging sometimes, I admit. But we want to help our customers achieve that they don't have to purchase that extra license from demand base or from 6 Sense. They don't have to split their two funnels into 2 different systems. So some of the things that we'll be working on in the summer is scoring on company level in HubSpot, and taking into account intent data from Bombora, third-party intent data from Bombora into the scoring mechanism, reporting on intent topics that based on what type of content they're engaging with on your website, that you can say, okay, this lead is a high intent, or this company is high intent on topic X, and to have that in your reporting. To better sync your data between objects like contacts, companies, and deals, because everything tends to get a bit complex when you're doing ABM, especially when you're doing ABM in combination with a lead-based strategy, and that managing that combination is also something that we're working on, and then very important is to automate as much of that ABM playbook that I've shown you, to make it possible to do ABM with a smaller team, and to make it scalable.
Yeah. So in this case, HubSpot is more like a centralized database automation platform. You can even, of course, put your CRM in it, but you can also do the ABM targeted campaigns outside the same, out of the same system, to make sure that you don't have data diverse spread over all different kind of solutions, right?
Yes. Each time you add a system to your stack, you need to make sure that your data is synchronized, and it's always a headache. And it's going to be
how would you advise the importance of the tool? Like, how important for ABM success is the tool you use regarding to your playbook, for example?
It's of course you need to be able to scale your approach. Mm-hmm. You can't build a team of 50 people to do ABM, but I feel like a lot of lead-based tools, whether it's HubSpot or Marketo or something else, they also allow you to automate already a lot of stuff. So I personally think, and I've worked with some of the ABM tools myself, that their added value is doesn't weigh against the fact that you're splitting your two different funnels in two different systems. Because sometimes they mix, and you'll have leads from a company in this funnel and in HubSpot, and then leads from a company in the other funnel in demand base. You're unable to work that efficiently. It's always a headache.
Yeah, makes sense. And what about a question from Frederick? There's like a lot of high touch involved, as you mentioned. What if that's like 2 years or maybe longer? How does the sales, the duration of the sales cycle with high touches is over 2-3 years? Do you have specific tips or tricks for that if it's that long, or does it matter?
It matters. The more high touch and the more complex your sales deals are, the more your ROI is going to be, the better your ROI is going to be when you do account based. So if you have sales cycles of 2 years or longer, I assume that you also have high deal amounts and an high ACV. Then it's just really important to focus on an account-based strategy, and you might not get any pipeline or revenue from your lead-based strategy in that case.
Okay. And Edwin is asking, he saw Mark Ritson yesterday on a webinar saying that ABM is not new, that salespeople have been doing it for decades already. What's your opinion about that? How new is ABM?
Focusing on specific accounts with your sales team is not new. That's true.
Smart sales teams.
But that doesn't mean that process that they've used is optimal and is scalable. I see a lot of teams that in a high touch sales model that rely heavily on sales and on sales generating the leads, and the quality of leads from marketing is just not good enough. And oftentimes they just sales ignores the leads that marketing is generating. So it's really important that you create they don't even call it account-based marketing anymore. Over the last few months, that term account-based experience is surfacing a lot. It's really just important that you know that marketing has a big role to play when it comes to making your sales more successful. And that concept is not that old.
Yeah, it's not specifically marketing, it's the alignment between the rest of the teams as well. So I like the account-based experience as a title for it. All right. Yeah, you mentioned it already. You have great plans coming up. We are working with the team on account-based experience already at some of our B2B clients. But if you want to be updated, if you want to be in touch with us on the developments of that, you will get a recap mail with the slide deck, as I mentioned, and the recording, and also a possibility on subscribing for our new monthly account-based newsletter. So if you want to be involved with all the things we share about that, feel free to subscribe. I think I was just checking the chat really briefly. There are no more questions for now. Of course, Aspen, I will give you a call. Thank you for the notice. And if you need any more information or you want to talk about the account-based experience with us, feel free to reach out. And we hope to see you soon. Next week, we have another great episode coming up of Web's Webinar Wednesday. Steven, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for all your insights. I really liked all the steps and the presentation you shared. So yeah, I think we had a good hour so far. And thank you guys for joining again, and we talk soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.